Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Aurora. This class is called Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is August 29th of 2019, and we are finally getting to some of the meat and potatoes of this semester. This is the Level 1 presentation, and the topic is Flying Rainbow Lasagna and its relationship or connection to or expression through DNA. All right, so this whole class is all about how you as an individual can embody this shape, that this shape is not just something that's an intellectual idea that we think about or that we talk about in class or even make paintings or sculptures about, that it is an embodiment. And the medium through which you embody is your DNA, or are the vibrating strings of your DNA. That's the canvas is where the artist paints. Your DNA is where you, or each one of us, expresses our artistry through. So this presentation is all about how Flying Rainbow Lasagna relates to DNA. This is not the teaching where it is the how to do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, but taking this lesson is essential. That's like, it's like teaching you melodies that you're gonna put together into the final symphony. You need to know, or it's like understanding your anatomy. If you're going through a birth process, then it's crucial to know, this is what is happening during the birth process. So although you can definitely play by ear, you can fly by the seat of your pants, you can certainly have babies without knowing anything about anatomy, and we did that for thousands of years, but so much better to know exactly what is going on an internal level when you're doing this dance. So apologies, let me just drink a little bit of water. Thank you for understanding. And we'll get on to a lot of pictures because I have pictures and I also have my fancy dancy pipe cleaners to be able to teach everyone all about how Flying Rainbow Lasagna relates to your DNA. So starting off with some pictures. So, oh, this goes away. Hold on a second. The first thing I want to show you, and wait, this goes away too. Sometimes, I'm sorry, I've got so many things on here. First thing I want to show you is an image of supercoiling. Now I have a video, oh, and wait, let me make my face bigger. There you go. I have a video that is about supercoiling that's in my YouTube playlist on channel, Flying Rainbow Lasagna is my channel, called Supercoiling Supplemental Homework Videos. Wow, just start from the beginning on that. On my channel, on YouTube, Flying Rainbow Lasagna, there is a playlist. The playlist is called Supplemental Homework Videos, and that's specifically for students of this class. There are several videos in that playlist, but specifically there's one that's about supercoiling, and it's blocked in some countries, but I added a subsequent one that's not blocked. So what is supercoiling? First of all, we have to talk about what is DNA and what is DNA behavior, because I think that in science class, for a lot of people where they were first introduced to the concept of DNA, DNA was presented as a static object, either a little twined together piece of thread or an X-shaped chromosome. Here, I'll hold it up like this, an X-shaped or a Y-shaped chromosome, which is the thing that sits there, that doesn't do anything very fun and exciting and spectacular. So big, big, big emphasis, takeaway from today's presentation is that DNA is dynamic. It doesn't just sit there. It does all sorts of stuff behaviorally. So the stuff that it's doing is called supercoiling. And I don't have to write that out for you, but I'm going to get to my annotations because I want to draw this out. Because we've got to talk about the cell. And let me just find a color that will show up against this background. Let's see if you can see this. All right. Like if this is, where's a good spot where you can see? If this is the cell, and then you have inside of the cell the nucleus, and then let's get a different color. Hold on a second. Inside of the nucleus of your cell, all of this blue scribbly scrabbly that I'm making, that's your DNA. So for only a small portion of the cell's lifespan is the DNA rather coiled up tightly into this shape that I'm circling over here on this little animation, this little diagram over to the side. X-shaped chromosome. That's the chromosome shape happens when all of your quote-unquote suitcase is packed up. like when you don't need your clothes and you're going to get on your airplane, you roll up all of your socks and underwear into little tiny packages and stick them all in your carry-on luggage. And then that's like your stuff is in its luggage. That's what chromosome is like. The chromosome is what happens when your DNA needs to get packed up in order to go someplace, meaning mitosis or cell division, all right? But for most of the cell's lifespan, so you're only going to go someplace, if you're going to go to the airport, it might take whatever, a few hours in your life. You don't live with your socks and underwear always tightly bundled in your suitcase, ready to travel at any moment. No, you have your socks and underwear strewn throughout your bedroom, whatever, in piles, on chairs. Where's your laundry, right? This is called chromatin. I think maybe I should write that out. So that's what happens when DNA is unfurled. Let's write this out. That is what happens when the genetic sweater is unfurled, or when you take the crochet, you pull out all the loops of the crochet, and then it just is like a big, giant, disorganized ball of yarn. So that is what DNA is mostly behaving like for most of its lifespan in your nucleus. And when it's this big, giant, disorganized ball of yarn, it doesn't just sit there doing nothing either. It has movements and oscillations. Like because you can think of it like scrolls, and we'll get into what methylation is. You could think of it like papyrus scrolls, scrolling and unscrolling, opening up and closing up. But it also does different things, like it twists itself together. Let me bring up a few more images. Hold on a second, because this will illustrate it better than I think my descriptions. This is just a little line drawing. I didn't make this drawing of what some of the types of loops that DNA can make in the process of behavior and dancing, supercoiling. DNA makes all these interesting loops and swirls, and it has enzymes. So for most, when DNA is tightly coiled, it has a lot of energy in it, and the little RNA messengers cannot get inside in order to read all the pages of the book. So in order to read the book or read the scrolls, it's necessary to release some tension and let the scrolls open up and unfurl. That's what these little enzymatic snippers do. So inside of you, and this is normal. This is what I'm trying to say all the time. Like, you don't have to have some kind of a magical CRISPR machine, a magic gene editing machine. You're doing this all the time naturally as part of your day-to-day and moment-to-moment functionality of your cells in your body. This is normal. So when I'm talking to you about flying rainbow lasagna, I'm not asking you or encouraging you to do anything outside of what you ordinarily do. It's not like I'm saying go from 0 to 60. You're at a dead standstill and now I want you to go 60 miles an hour. That's not what I'm saying, because your DNA is already behaving. It's already dancing. It's already doing stuff. So it's not like it's just sitting there doing nothing and I'm saying, like, get up and go. It's already doing stuff. What I'm saying is, here's a new thing you can do. As long as you're doing stuff, here's a new thing you can do that's even better and more fun and happy and comfortable than the stuff you've been doing. So first we'll talk about, some of science's descriptions of this. So for many, many years, science didn't look at DNA when it was actually alive and moving. Like, imagine that. Like, imagine if you had never seen a butterfly actually flying through a field, and you've only ever seen a butterfly dead and, smushed between some glass or dissected into different parts. That's, in large sense, how objective materialist science has studied DNA. Hold on. Since the 1940s and 1950s, when DNA was discovered by humanity, that science would kind of like destroy the living creature and, dissect it or break it up into parts to analyze it more fully. And so science did not have a full viewpoint of what DNA was actually doing. So earlier science said, oh, DNA is just this blueprint for your physical protein structures of your body. It is the same throughout your life. What you're given at birth is like, that's your fate. That's genetic fatalism. And if you're an objective materialist and if you're like, whatever, like, what's it called? You get reformed, like when you're in recovery. If you're in recovery from being an objective materialist and you need some connective integument between that mindset and the mindset of more expansive, let's say, quantum possibilities, check out the work of the scientist Bruce Lipton, because he's an official scientist. I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist. If you need like meat and potatoes from a scientist, he can give you some very good connective tissue ideas about how epigenetics, and I should write that word out also. Can I do this? Epigenetics, meaning the code that rules the code. Yeah, so throughout his career, Bruce Lipton has done some good work in researching, like, why do identical twins not get identical diseases? If cancer is a genetic disease and identical twins are the splitting apart into two individual beings from the same unique genetic structure, so they've got copies of the structure, but they don't have the same exact life. Why not? They don't both get the same diseases. Why not? And the answer is because there is something else that is dictating or influencing the expression of DNA, the expression of the potentials that exist within genes. Now let's go back to my face and grab my little sculpture here. Now I just use the word potentials. I hold this up all the time. Hold on a second. Thank you. I hold this up all the time. I say this is chakra. This is an energy center of your body. This represents possibilities of and probabilities of the time field, potentials. So what we're talking about now is something really big, another big emphasis. DNA ain't just sitting around on the couch doing nothing, doing stuff. Your DNA is the connective integument that ties you together to the time field. And that is very, very big. So your DNA is always moving and twisting and swirling and coiling itself up and then uncoiling itself up and curling. And, you know, I'm trying to think of different words, but I'm sending you mental pictures of how active it is and what it's actually doing. That movement of DNA is literally what propels you through time from moment to moment, through the train cars of reality. I've drawn this out before. I won't draw it out again. Little boxes, individual train cars, individual moments of time, each one separated at the Planck length. And here's you. Here's your little spark of consciousness that is jumping from moment to moment. And what propels you in terms of jumping from moment to moment? You don't have to sit there like it's 12:15. Guys, get ready. We're going to jump into 12:16. Get ready. Get ready. Get ready to jump. Get ready to jump. And then jump. It's 12:16. Woohoo! We made it. We made it to 12:16. Like, we literally just jumped into another body. I'm not in my body of 12:15. I'm in my body of 12:16. But we don't have to consciously say to ourselves, like, okay, get ready, do it now. Like, we have a natural flow through time. And that natural flow of moving through time from moment to moment is the end result of this movement of our DNA. That is something that science and objective materialism is not yet prepared to understand. So I'm giving you that. That's huge emphasis, big point. What is death? So again, life happens in this area of the time vortex where I'm swirling my pen. Over here is where timelines that you live upon are. This is the membrane of death, right? And what we're trying to do, of course, is stay upright and avoid the membrane of death. When you hit the membrane of death, what happens? What happens? Your DNA stops knitting itself. Your genetic sweater stops knitting itself. So imagine, I've never really knit or crochet, but I think you guys know what this is like. It's like little lines coming up from the bottom. Like, as you're knitting your life, you're knitting your sweater, you're knitting, and the socks are getting longer at the bottom, the blanket's getting longer at the bottom. When you hit the membrane of death, there's no more knitting. There's no more knitting. You have knitted one, purled one, you dropped your stitches, that's the end of the knitting. And then actually what happens is all of the loops of your life get pulled out. DNA, you get unstructured at the end of your life there. But the point is, you die physically on a metabolic level when on a cellular level, your DNA stops moving. That's big. So if you want to keep on moving through time, what you have to do is make your DNA dance in the correct patterns. This is a really, really big, huge conclusion to draw, like logical conclusions. If my DNA dances in certain dance patterns, end result is death. It's like right foot forward, left, left, back, right leg back equals death. Don't do that dance. Don't do the alley cat. It's the old wedding dance or the funky chicken, whatever. Don't do right to the right, left to the left. Don't do that dance. This is a dance that was handed down to us from our ancestors, from our immediate ancestors. That would be the mommy and daddy generation, but all the way back. It's an ancient program of how to hit the membrane of death. That's a horrible, horrible dance that you no longer have to perform. You now have another dance that you can perform with your DNA. And I was describing this to someone yesterday too. Hold on, let me drink. How when we first come here as little tiny infants, we don't yet have the program that we get from our parents or grandparents, from our ancestors' generation, that death is necessary and inevitable. We do not come here as little tiny babies even understanding that death is a thing. That is an intellectual concept that we have to be introduced to. And I'm sure that many of you can remember back, when did you first learn about death and what were the circumstances? It might have been the death of a pet or a loved one or a granny or something like that. And you had to learn, where did granny go? Where did my goldfish go? And so goldfish went bye-bye. And that's the introduction of this sense that, wait, at a certain point, my DNA is not going to dance anymore. Kapow, mind blown. And that changes the behavior of the DNA. So what Bruce Lipton and other scientists are recognizing now with epigenetics is that the introduction of certain ideas changes the behavior of your DNA, changes the manifestation in terms of health and physical vitality. So just teaching a little kid, and everybody who does this thinks they're doing right, because you got to teach kids about the facts of life, and death is a fact of life, right? And you don't want to sugarcoat it. You want to help them to have the tools they need to be able to navigate life. But so it's well-intentioned. I'm not casting aspersions upon anybody that did this to anyone else, your parents, or whomever raised you. Like, they weren't evil monsters because they told you that death existed. They thought they were teaching you about reality. But what they were doing was inoculating you with the expectation of a particular reality, and it doesn't have to be the only reality. So flying rainbow lasagna is a new idea. When I say inoculating, I don't mean like horrible, vaccines that are harmful and cause damage to humanity. I'm thinking more like, you inoculate the mycelium of, like a mushroom colony or something like that. You inoculate a petri dish, sending these ideas out into the world. So humanity has been carrying this idea that's a very erroneous, I want to say toxic, unhealthy, unpleasant idea that death is necessary. Death is going to happen. Death is a thing that's going to happen to everyone and everything. And let me just draw this, this is for everyone who's in the class. You're all experts now at my little time diagrams. Let me draw. So much easier than moving my mouth. Let's draw the time vortex. So this is the lower quadrant for anyone who's tuning in for meat and potatoes. You don't really know, the rest of the stuff. Here's the path of least likelihood, right? So this is side view or cross-section view. This is the same object from the top down. And this little infinity point that you're heading towards is this little spot right here. This is like a bullseye. So this is the one trajectory that was not a good trajectory. It's very hard to work with these electronic pens and get it in the right spot. Well, that's the one trajectory that actually leads you to continued life and existence, as opposed to all of these other trajectories that terminate on the membrane of death. So death is inevitable only in certain circumstances. Wait, let me drink more. Sorry, I get so excited. Death is not inevitable. Death is not a 100% inevitability. Death does not always happen. I'm going to circle this little spot. This little spot right here is where death does not happen. Death does not happen there. Oh, look at that. This little spot right here is where death does not happen. So if you feel that it is necessary to teach young children, you must die, and blah, 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 and goldfish had to die, that's not absolutely accurate. That this time diagram is much more accurate. That yes, in all of these other areas where I'm scribbling in red, death is necessary, death is inevitable. If you're aligned with those timelines, that's what's going to happen. But there's this very critical unlikelihood that I literally call the path of least likelihood, that there might be 25 million possible timelines where you die. It's like a choose your own adventure novel of your life. There could be 25 million ways to read that book so that it ends in death. But in every single person's life structure of time, there's one possibility that leads you to continued life, where you don't have that bifurcation, but like the road went and then the road ended, the road simply continues. That's what eternal life is. So again, eternal life does not necessarily mean like someone has waved their magic wand, or you are, in a Christian heaven, or not that I'm, making fun of that or anything, but it does not necessarily mean like some magical thing all of a sudden happens. Like, now I know I'm in eternal life. It just means you haven't died yet, and you ain't gonna die. You're on the infinity timeline. You are on the timeline that is the least likely pathway where you continue onward. So your DNA is your determinant of which timeline you're experiencing. What is your DNA dancing like determines whether you're on a timeline that's going to end on the membrane of death, or whether you're tilty, or whether you're going to go directly up the center. If you're going to be like an arrow that goes right into the middle of the bullseye and leads you towards continued existence as opposed to death. So and I know, wait, just take a pause. Let all that sink in. Wow, there's options other than death. That's a little seed that just got planted in your mind. But many of you are returning students, so you've already had that seed planted. Wait, let me drink. When I drop that little seed into your mind, I think of each one of you as like a super saturated solution of sugar water or salt water, whatever it is. And this shape is just that initial kernel or that initial impulse around which everything else crystallizes. That's how the process of crystallization happens. Supersaturated solution, you drop one little seed crystal into it, and that's just the genesis or the impetus that makes everything else and literally spreads outward concentrically, organized around that. That is how I see this flying rainbow lasagna shape. That there are many, many people here in this world who are totally fed up with the BS and crapola, keep it family friendly here, of what is going on in our world. Everything from disease and decrepitude and death to profound social iniquity, profound economic iniquity, and political corruption. And the solutions to these things the solution is transformation on a genetic level. And oh my goodness, there's so many directions that I want to go in. Wait. This is about becoming empowered, becoming a genetic virtuoso, where you intentionally make patterns with your DNA that are going to affect reality. So just as I said that you're already dancing with your DNA, I'm not asking you to start doing something you're not already doing it, but just I'm offering you or encouraging you to dance in new patterns. In exactly that same way, like you're already moving through time, you're already doing this activity, but it's the question of becoming more refined and doing it intentionally with an intentional trajectory. So instead of having events happen to you, you become much more a generator of the events. And that relates to the idea of genetic fatalism. So early on in the discovery of DNA, humans thought, oh, if it's written in your DNA, it is fated to have to happen to you, like cancer. If mommy has cancer, if daddy has cancer, it's going to be passed down to you, and then you are going to get cancer. But we've already learned that is, not necessarily truthful. And we're all also learning that it relates to other aspects of life than just your physical protein structures. That you can be the author of your existence instead of having some, bearded sky god in some far removed world says, I'm going to make this happen to you. Bam, I shoot my trident at you and this happens, or, whatever happens from the sky god. You begin to become powerful and you say, hey, I want to write this in the script of my life. I want to have this happen in the script of my life. And that's what I start to talk about when I'm talking about, jazz here or, innovations. We gotta turn it up. Turn it up. Hey, is that Freedom Rock? Turn it up. That's what I'm talking about. The capacity to jazz it up a little bit, that it's not just working with the events that one has been given at the basic blueprint of your life. Events, not just diseases, like whether or not you get cancer. Events of your life, like whether you are, rotate tires as a mechanic or whether you're an opera singer, like these are events of your life. And let's say the script writer, has written into your genetic code, thou shalt be a tire mechanic. And you're like, I want to be an opera singer. Screw that life. You actually should be allowed to rewrite your DNA. This is very big. So we've got your DNA is dynamic, not static. Your DNA is your physical connection through the time field. What determines if you're on this timeline over here or this timeline over here? What determines that? your DNA is what determines that. And now that we get into those, we get into the cosmic ethics of understanding that this is like your country. This is like Aurora land. This is the country of Aurora. And I get to determine what goes on inside of my country. Your epidermis is like your boundaries of your country, and you get to write the rules of what's happening in your country, in your body, in the cells of your body. So you're allowed to rewrite or change the behavior of your DNA, change and thereby change reality. That's the whole point of being in a physical body. So many people are like, wow, I find being in a physical body burdensome. I have to drink and eat and poop and brush my teeth and all these different things. Being in a body sucks. I hate it. Yeah, I want to get out of here. I want to jump out of my body. This is so many people think this way, not only New Age or UFO enthusiasts, but also like religious and, Christian. The idea like that, get out of my body. I got to ascend. I got to go somewhere else. No, I do not think that you have to get out of your body. But what I feel is that your body is an instrument that needs to be tuned up and changed in its behavior. And that having a body is like a wonderful opportunity. I came here at great lengths to have a body and have DNA strings that I can play like a guitar. So it's not a burden. It's not, oh, having these DNA strings is so burdensome. I can't wait to get rid of them. No, because up until this point, humanity has not been strumming its own strings. Someone else has been playing crappy, cover your ears, crappy, horrible, ugly music that is not perfectly harmonically tuned. And that's why you're like, I want to get rid of my strings. I hate this music because of crappy music. But don't blame the guitar for the crappy music. The guitar can be tuned and you can play different music on the guitar. That's what Flying Your Lasagna is all about. So now I'm going to go into the intellectual presentation of how this shape relates to DNA. So first of all, we have to do a little bit of DNA anatomy. DNA is often presented as if it's just this squiggly little wave. Hold on, clear this all out. How can I clear this all out? Clear. It is presented as if it is just a squiggly wave with equal squiggliness. So here's how a lot of people draw DNA, kind of like that. So when I say equal squiggliness, equal length of these waveforms up here, it's not accurate. So what actually is happening with DNA is that you have a major groove and a minor groove. And I'll show you on pictures too. But first we'll just show it like this. So DNA is actually spaced more like this. So you have big fat amount of space here and a big fat amount of space here and a little amount of space here. And that is literally called the major and the minor groove. Just like you have major keys on the piano, the white keys, and black keys for, like you got, this is just really, I just think that's very funny. Major groove, minor groove. Okay, now let me show you, let me now show you a scientific picture of that. So this I use with permission from, there's like a science foundation that, created these animations. So this is an actual photograph, scanning electron microscope of what DNA looks like, but then it's been jazzed up and then there's an animation that they jazzed it up more. So this is not just a dry photograph, there's extra jazzing that has happened, but I want to show you major and minor groove here. Big fat groove, and then in here, little skinny groove, all right? That is the way your DNA is shaped when it is just one thread. Now we got to go back to this, and I got to show you what is supercoiling. How do we supercoil? So the video shows it way better than I can describe with my flapping moving mouth parts. But basically, every time you twist the yarn more, it gets more and more curly. And that is what we start to see in this little description over here. Wait, let's see if we can get sometimes that my annotation, there we go, annotation. So we start off with one thread here, and the process of supercoiling is when you coil that thread around these things over here that are kind of like spools, like thread around a spool, like a wooden spool. The spools in this case are called histones, they're proteins, and the thread coils around there twice, and then it goes around to the next one, it coils around there twice. So it's this coiling process. And this diagram doesn't show it that well, but over here, in this level of supercoiling, what you end up is a whole bunch of donut shapes stacked on top of each other. So we coil, coil, coil around these little spools until we end up having kind of these donut shapes like this that are on end, and that's your DNA. And then, wait, let me show you this picture. Some of these things are happening. I have trouble working this thing. I cannot get the annotation to stop. I want to show you a picture in the back that's behind these layers. I want to show you that picture behind the layers of lasagna. It won't let me do it. Stop share. Sometimes technology is so challenging not to go to a different thing. Do it. Oh goodness, this is all I wanted to show you. I want to show you this picture, and I want to show you this picture. Yes. This is a little screenshot from your homework. I hope everybody did their homework. So these are the donuts, right, in this level of supercoiling, stacked up donuts. So one of the ways that you can do flying rainbow lasagna with your DNA is to take these stacked up donuts and make them start to oscillate in this direction back and forth the way that I'm scribbling my pen on your page, okay? And as you get them to oscillate back and forth, it creates the flying rainbow lasagna waveform that you see right here. And what that means is that you're taking a scoop of this and a scoop of this and integrating them together, as I've done on the screen many, many times. The screen here, as I've shown you, we have a membrane, arbitrary membrane, a barrier that divides two things. And then I've got thing one over here and thing two over here. Flying rainbow lasagna is an oscillation that jumps across these membranes that renders the membrane permeable, so that you take a scoop from this side and deposit it over here. Then I take a scoop from this side and I throw it over here. So I'm blending the two sides together. What if I'm doing that with DNA that is supercoiled? It means that now I'm taking a little bit of this DNA and putting it together with a little bit of this DNA, and I'm making a mashup. So this is just like music, where let's say we have one song that's like down here. Let's say that's like a Beastie Boys song. They're hip hop. They do all this stuff with recording and sampling and pastiche or quilting together these types of things. But then we got over here, that's some Jimi Hendrix or some Mozart or ancient Gregorian chants. And what we can do is a mashup where we put a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and it makes beautiful music together. So this is how you get to rearrange your DNA. It's one way that you can rearrange your DNA into new formats. So there's a couple of different things. You've been given certain software programs. I'm not a transhumanist. That like the expectation of death, you've been given, or the expectation of cancer, or whatever. That's like writing in a book. You're like, I don't like this book. This book sucks. I want to rewrite the book. How do you rewrite the book? You take the words and letters and you rearrange them. It can be the same exact sentence that says, you shall grow a horrible cancerous tumor and die. But what if you take those letters and you take them and you rearrange them? And then it can say something completely different. What if you can rearrange, some of this area over here and some of this area over here and blend them together? Essentially, you can take any stupid, arbitrary book, phone book, a handbook, a car owner manual. As long as you can erase and rearrange, you can turn that car owner's manual into a masterpiece. You can make it like whatever. Moby Dick, War and Peace, whatever's your favorite book. That's what your body is. You've been given your body and your genetic code, and it's a mishmash of all sorts of stuff that you inherited from your ancestors and from your culture, and all sorts of crazy stuff that was overlaid on top of it that you don't actually want in there. That's really unhealthy and unpleasant. And some people are like, I hate this book so much, I want to get out of my body. Like, I hate this book so much, like I want to stop being alive. I hate this book so much. Instead of hating the book so much that you like throw it on a burning pile, actually rewrite the book. And that is what Flying Rainbow Lasagna allows you to do. So I can use myself as an example. I came into this physical body that already had a pre-existing genetic structure. The genetic structure is not only about what color the eyeballs are, but also about events in reality. And some of those events in reality included death, horrible, horrible, painful, debilitating death. And I was like, screw that. That doesn't sound like a very fun chapter. Let's rewrite that chapter. so that I have a different experience. That's just the beginning of saying, no, instead of dying, we're going to do a different unlikely thing. And then we're going to do this, this, and this instead. So this is how I have, transcended a lot of neurological damage. That was what killed the person that used to be in this body, and transformed the events that I've been able to experience here. So I know there's questions in the chat. I'm getting to those questions, but also what we're talking about here is not just rearranging the structures of your body. We're talking about rearranging events in time. That's the best superpower. Okay, if I gave you all a class, I gave you a chance, you could get a superpower, but you're gonna have to choose. You can be as strong as the Hulk, big giant muscles, or you could have lasers that shoot out of your eyes, or you could have the capacity to rearrange time. What would you want to do? And the least advanced people would be like, Hulk muscles, Hulk smash, right? And then smart people would be like, no, we can kill more people with lasers. No, the best thing to do is to be able to manipulate time directly. That is the most amazing superpower. You don't have to punch your enemies with your muscles or laser them with your eyeballs. You can do rearranging events in time so that whatever, your enemy wants to kill you, but you rearrange time so they can't even get out of bed on that day. You don't have to worry about them at all. There are all sorts of different ways to supersede malevolent attacks by being able to manipulate time. So life becomes fun. Life becomes a fun adventure instead of a constant deadly barrage, where you're at risk all the time of all these things that beings are, attacking you consciously. Consciousness beings attacking you is what I'm trying to get out through my mouth. Let me drink. As a poor disempowered person, you become empowered, which is how we're supposed to live in this world. We are not supposed to be constantly beset by crapola and have to deal with a disarranged genetic code that we're not in control of, and then you die. That's a horrible existence. I understand why people hate their chakras. Okay, wait. I'll get to this question, then I'll get to more beautiful, fancy, I need to do fancy pipe cleaners. Pedro says, so the DNA hacking by the Pooties. And the Pooties, Pedro's my anagram man. Pootie stands for pesky occupiers of the interstices, the turds who refuse to flush, the guys who live on the membranes of death. So the hacking by the Pooties is like someone mixing mercury and gold and telling you that gold is bad because it's heavy, hard, and toxic, and to throw it away and hope you get a better nugget next time. Very interesting analogy. I would say so, because time itself does not equal suffering. Being submerged in time itself is not flawed. Everyone thinks there's something wrong with time, Saturn eats his babies. That thing, the god Saturn, the creator of time and all the different things, he's eating his babies. That whole idea, going from youth and the flower of beauty in youth to becoming more and more decrepit until finally you're dead and decomposing. There's all of those presumptions about being submerged in time, that is what the definition of being in time is. And I don't think that that's what time has to be. That is what the experience has been since the invention of death. But I'm here trying to give you a glimmer or drop that seed crystal into your supersaturated solution to give you a new approach that this decrepitude and death is not necessary. And that's big, because everyone's well, look at the life cycle of the planet, look at the life cycle of the seed, look at the life cycle of all the stuff in the biological realm. Clearly death is inevitable and part of everything. You gotta understand, we're in a world where death now exists and is part of the ecosystem, but we came from a world where death did not exist, and we can move back into that world or recreate a world like that. So everything changes. The life cycle of a seed, the life cycle of you, the life cycle of a star and a planet all change when this changes. Wait, let me drink. Oh, and Pedro continues and says, the Pooties lie to use to try to deceive us to stay in their system. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is all about recruitment to the membrane of death. The Pooties, the evil ones, the wicked ones who live on the membrane of death, what they want is to take all of you guys who are nice, healthy, and alive, and give you a bunch of crap programs in your mind so that you will eventually join them on the membrane of death. Just don't mean to be distracted while I'm telling you something that's so important and profound. None of us are supposed to ever hit the membrane of death. The evil ones who live on the membrane of death are in a death recruitment. They're who can I get to come and die and join my team of dead people over here, and so I can exploit their energy. This is what they're doing. It's not that much fun to have to talk about that. Wait, and I'll get to Now I'll get to more questions or whatever, but let me get to this. So there's two different ways that I'm describing today about how your DNA can be affected by flying rainbow lasagna. So one is where DNA has been supercoiled to the point of creating a toroidal or donut shape. And we then do the flying rainbow lasagna where we're moving those donuts back and forth and kind of causing superpositioning, overlapping of realities by doing this. But I also want to show you the idea of flying rainbow lasagna when DNA is unzipped. So let me start with my fancy pipe cleaners. So DNA, when it's just one thread, like one piece of yarn, is zipped together just like the teeth of a zipper and kind of twisted together. And during a very normal part of its replication process, so there's replication, there are two different types of replication happening here. One is the type of replication where you have one cell that eats and eats and eats and gets really, really fat and then splits into two cells. That's mitosis. And so that's a different type of replication in your DNA. That's like saying, okay, if we're going to have a winter house and a summer house, we're going to need two of everything. We're going to need 2 coffee cups, 2 dinner plates. Like, we're going to need that in both houses. But there's a different level of replication that happens. In the cell nucleus, your DNA is kind of like a book or a blueprint. The special place, special library, none of the books can leave the library. So in order for information, like how to build a protein structure, to get out of the library, to get to the little guys so they can read the blueprints and actually make stuff happen, we need RNA messengers. RNA messengers go into the special historical library. They put on the white gloves. They open up the special ancient scrolls that are called your DNA, and they actually read stuff. So the opening up of the scrolls, here's your DNA. In order to open it up for the little RNA messengers to read it, you gotta unzip it, and all of a sudden it becomes shaped kind of like a Y, and here's the unzipped zippers. So now RNA messengers can read, oh, these are all these little, pieces of information on this side of this, and it'll make a copy of that, like a complementary copy, like making a Xerox or whatever they call it now, a photocopy. You go to the library, you can't take out the ancient text and bring it home with you and read it on the toilet because it gets poop on it. So you have to Xerox it. Take your Xeroxes into the toilet with you. So the RNA messenger, I'm sorry, I get so silly. The RNA messenger makes a copy of this very important information, and then that copy can be taken out of the nucleus and brought to the rest of the cell. I bring this up in such great detail because it is in that moment of being split apart, there is a opportunity for, let's say, quantum indeterminacy that can be magnified and exploited by placing a placeholder called flying rainbow lasagna in that V shape and keeping it there. To go further, if you were to unzip all of your DNA, it would be like, woohoo, like everything's unzipped. It would be like anything is possible. Because remember, these represent events, not just eye color, not just nose shape. These DNA strings represent events. So if I unzip all the DNA, it's like, woohoo, any events can happen. But if you did that with all of your DNA all at once, you can't be alive because that is too unstable. It's like, yeah, anything can happen, but you're just like a ball of possibilities. You're going to just like blob. You're just a blob. You cannot live just as a blob. That's why we don't do that until the invention of the flying rainbow lasagna, which is like a stabilizer or a placeholder. So if we've got, this is, I'm holding it like this, but this is actually like this. Like we have DNA that is shaped like a curly up and down shape like this here, like this, right? But we have split it apart in a V. And okay, so this is split apart. Now let's talk about what is a higher dimensional space. So this is my cup. My cup has an empty space inside of it where water goes. Where that water goes is like the higher dimensional space, or what my cup can contain. This DNA, when it gets split apart, contains a higher dimensional space here, like a coffee cup that can hold stuff there, can hold water. You can put a flying rainbow lasagna there. So if you didn't put anything here, and you just unzipped a little bit of your DNA, you're fine. This is normal. This is how your body normally works. If you unzipped all of your DNA with no placeholders, you're a blob. But if you unzip your DNA, keep it unzipped, and put this flying rainbow lasagna there so that this doesn't collapse and mush and get all gush, then you've got yourself stabilized in a field of quantum possibilities that are not yet determined. You get to exist in a stable form in a state of pure possibilities. Quantum possibilities, possibilities and probabilities. Miniman, I'll get to your question. So the first we're going to just show you this. How you understand this is, okay, first of all, this is a static sculpture that is the end result of a dynamic waveform. I'm going to show you animation. And the animation shows you how this is the end result of actual movement. This one, right here. So, because I don't want anyone to think that flying rainbow lasagna is this static thing that just sits there. It doesn't just sit there. It happens here. This is the end result of this movement of jumping up and down. Okay? Boom, 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 boom. That little dot just jumped up and down and made the lasagna. So we now understand that we are creating this form like the wake of a ship or the wake of a plane that flies in the sky by this little oscillation moving up and down. Jump, 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 jump. The thing that is moving up and down or that is moving up and down within is your DNA. Now let me draw. You are jumping up and down within the medium of your DNA. So here's where one thread of your DNA comes and goes around the backside. Oop, I can't do stuff. And like that. And one, this is the DNA that's been split apart into a V shape, comes around the front like this. And I just did that as a very non-exact little line drawing. But now we're going to do a more exact drawing. First, I'm going to hold up this sculpture in the eyeball just right way. Okay, so right here, you can see there's a crossing point where I'm going to trace with my finger, tracing with my finger behind here. Here's a waveform. I'm tracing the top of it. I'm tracing the bottom of it. I'm going past that little crossing point where my mouth is moving, and then I'm moving over here to the right. Now I'm going to trace it in front. Here's an up. Here's that little crossing point where my mouth is moving, and then we're going down. That represents the DNA. We've got DNA is twined together. It's a little V. We split it apart, and then half of it goes in front and half of it goes behind the lasagna. Okay, I hope you're getting that. There we go. That's a very crude, nice fancy pipe cleaners here. Fancy pipe cleaners. One little thing twines in front and one little thing twines in back. So that twining happens as this is jumping up and down. And it's not just jumping up and down, it is also rotating around. So ordinarily, these little DNA zipper teeth can only dance with the little friends that are directly across from it. You know, you only dance with your dance partner that's directly across from you. Like, I've been dancing with that dance partner for 20 million years, and I am bored dancing with that guy. What if you can flying rainbow lasagna? What if you can rotate this information so that now you're not just dancing with your partner across from here, you can dance with this guy over here, or you can dance with this guy over here. That is part of the capacity to rearrange your DNA. So again, you've been given the potential of what is written in your DNA. But that's the beginning, the starting point. That doesn't have to be inevitable. That you can take that starting point and you can change it and transform it and ameliorate it and make it expressed in different and better ways through mastering the flying rainbow lasagna. You're already changing your DNA just through the process of epigenetics. That's the understanding that new thoughts, intellectual behaviors, and emotional states affect the behavior of your DNA. That's really, really big. So the dance that your DNA is doing when you're like super happy and joyous and feeling awesome is a different dance than the DNA dance when you're sad and grieving or angry. Literally different shapes, polygons, different shapes of your body dependent upon what is your internal state. I mean, that's really big and huge. Now, wait, let me drink a little bit more. So I try to maintain a very, joyful internal state, but I still have to be integrated into this world and I have to do these daily chores. And some of these daily chores, like as I'm doing them, like I can feel my life force energy, draining away. And I joke about this, the phone prompts, like you have to call the bank or the credit card company, whatever it is. And it's like, if you want this, press 1. If you want this, press 2. If you want this, press 3. Like with every minute that I'm like waiting for these phone prompts, like I feel that my ordinarily joyful DNA dance is going like, until finally like I'm like dancing in like the dance of rage and agony. I'm like, just talk to the operator, please. Like any of these stupid things. So I want to validate this for you guys, because I think that you maybe think like this is just the daily ups and downs of life. Like, I'm standing in line at the post office. I'm like, I'm so bored. I wish I could go to the park and do something fun. But like, that's not just like boredom, literally. Boredom is a symptom or a behavioral feeling and expression that your DNA is going from its ordinarily joyful, expansive dance into these yucky patterns that eventually make you hit the membrane of death. Boredom is a symptom that your DNA is not dancing its usual joyful way. And now we have to think about this. Boredom is something that we become conditioned to and are even patted on the head like good dog. Because if you go to school, you're bored, but you sit in your chair and you do your work anyway. And that's preparation for going to work where you're bored, but you sit at your desk and you do your work anyway. Or any of the things that are very boring. Like I have to send off earrings at the post office, so I have to wait in line under fluorescent lights on a beautiful sunny day so I can send off the packages. And I'm like, I'm so bored. Like, I don't want to have to stand here. I want to go outside and play. Like that's telling you, your DNA is telling you you're not in the optimum timeline or behavioral pattern for vitality. And I know I would extend my life a lot if I didn't have to wait in line at the post office under the fluorescent lights. And I'm not just talking like the 5 minutes that I'm losing there. I'm talking about like the aftermath of all of this. Our entire human culture is set up to drain that energy. Like the dark crystal, the little happy guys, the evil guys drain out their energy, and you see their faces shrink down and they become these little dried up apple people. Like, it's very sad. That is intentional. Trying to tell you this. These aren't just silly little, like challenges of the day, like, like waiting in line at the coffee shop or whatever. Like, no, these are real, like soul-sucking, malevolent machinery. It's intentional. It's not by accident. It is to suck your soul energy. And the best way that you can fight against it is by maintaining your soul energy or your joyful dance. So that and I know I'm most at the end of the level 1 presentation here. This is intellectual information about what you're going to be doing. But I want you to know, like, this is what is happening on a subcellular level. So when you start to actually do this dance, your DNA is actually doing something. Your DNA is changing. Your DNA is changing its behavior. Hey, what would happen if a scientist decided to be like, I'm going to take a DNA sample off your skin when you're doing fly me lasagna? Well, I don't know what science or, a scanning electron microscope would pick up, because they're going to kill the DNA. They're going to squash the butterfly. The butterfly is flying around the garden doing all these amazing loops and all these amazing, whatever, dance movements. And science is like, well, I'm going to catch it in a net, squash it between some glass, and then that's going to be how we're going to study the butterfly. So I don't even think that there are sophisticated enough tools to watch DNA while it's actually doing its thing, because I think then it would be a very impressive thing. If we were observed in the state in the moment of lasagna, what you're actually doing is you're overlapping multiple realities, multiple layers of the time tapestry, and bringing them together through your own being and sewing it together into these different possibilities. Let me go to more questions so that I don't bypass or overlook any important questions. So wait. Someone asked me way back here. I'm making squinted faces. Okay, good question here. Let me drink and read. Eleanor, thank you for being here. Thank you for your question. It says, how do you know which letters to rearrange, which scoops to choose and mix? You're asking good questions. It goes on to say, is intent for best rewriting for healing and realignment enough? Yes. Do you have to know and aim for specific do-si-dos? I'll speak to that. Comes back also to sense of self and personal. Me has no idea of the specific story I, as the author, would want to write. So I understand totally. You're like, I don't know. Should I make my thymine add up with my guanine? Should I make my cytosine connect with my I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, I understand completely. And this is a lot. It's kind of like, for a long time, humanity has been told, like, you're not the driver. It ain't you. But now it's kind of like dumping in your lap. Like, here, you're going to have to reprogram your DNA. But don't be overwhelmed. all of this is done by feel. So it's just like if you're going to have an orgasm, you can be like, right to the right, left to the left, right back, step back. It's not about the mechanics of it. It's about the feeling of it. So when you're doing the DNA dance, it is much more about the feeling of it and not about focusing on the mechanics. Just like when you're a musical virtuoso, you're not like, oh, C sharp, C sharp. You're not thinking that. You're in the music. You're in the music. So when I do the Flying Rainbow Lasagna dance, it's a very direct response to the time field. I feel the possibilities and probabilities of time. I connect with them directly. I'm sensing the music, what I'm trying to say. So your questions will all be answered. None of this is arbitrary. So let's use music to relate to this. If it's like, well, I'm going to play this note, and I'm going to play this note, and then I can just feel. I know what the next note is going to be. It's going to be that note, because I already felt this one and this one. So once you start to learn these patterns, you become good at anticipating or grooving and knowing what the next pattern is supposed to be. All of this happens on a non-verbal and non-intellectual level. And that's hard because right now I'm verbally talking to all of your intellects. This is not an intellectual exercise. Just like if you're a basketball player, you're dribbling the ball and you are going from down the court to be able to shoot, make your basket. That is not an intellectual exercise. And it doesn't matter how much I describe to you. Well, what you want to do is you want to move your knees. You want to have your elbow up like this. You want to have this like this. None of that helps you to actually play the game or make a basket. But if I tell you it's about the feel, like get the feel, get this feeling, check all these different things, and then you'll know it when you feel this feeling. That's the best way that I can tell you when you're navigating. So the best answer I can give you is that it's a feeling, just like with music. What's the next note? It's going to be that because you can feel it. But of course, there's intellectual reasons why this is the next note. We can do that, but you don't arrive at the answer intellectually. So when I do my dance, I do not sit there with a calculator saying like, okay, move this 15 degrees over here, then the cosine, square root. No. All of it is very direct, spontaneous, and in the moment. I'm seeing, feeling, and hearing everything that's going on and making my personal adjustments to the time field and my, pushing and pulling and movements of DNA in real-time response to what I'm seeing. So this is music theory, and music theory can help to inform your performance. It can help you to know, that's going to be the next note because you've got the intellectual, structure, but you don't actually have to go through an intellectual process. That's what I'm saying. So when you are rearranging reality, when I rearrange reality, I don't say, oh, I better take a scoop of this and then take a scoop of this. That's not what my process is like at all. Totally nonverbal, totally non-intellectual, totally felt, abstract, like music. When I'm playing music, I'm like, I gotta play this, but I don't say to myself, C, then E, then I don't say that in my head. So you feel it. And also I want to give everybody like a reminder that you're allowed to experiment with your body. That so many people are like, oh, like I'm going to do the wrong thing. I just want to walk on eggshells. Just try a little this, pinky around the edges. Like you don't have to be that way. It's your body. It is your body. Like you don't need a health professional or like you can cut your own hair. Like you can do this. You're allowed to do this. This is DIY, your DNA. Like you don't need my permission. You don't need an expert. You don't need a diploma. And you are encouraged to do this level of self-exploration. So I understand that you don't want to just be willy-nilly. You don't want to be random, and you don't want to F shit up. Oh, pardon my French. You want to do a good job of it. So I appreciate everyone who's in this class who's hyper responsible. And also I want to remind you that, it's an exploration. Like when I do a painting, I don't want to be so like, that I can't actually pick up a pencil and do stuff. You gotta have a little bit of gumption and say, yes, I'm allowed to do this. I'm going to do this. And so I don't think that you have to worry like, what if I put the wrong things together? It will go horribly awry. What I did in the beginning of starting my explorations on reality creation and expansion, I would put little asterisks, like at the bottom of a contract, like I'm doing this like without the intention of screwing things up or making it worse. You can come up, I'm paraphrasing here, but you can come up with your own fine print and always just add that little fine print. And I did that mostly in the beginning when I didn't have as much of a feel for the music, but now I have much more confidence. So I'll say that to you also. I would say create some fine print, some little contracts down there about how you want to make good things happen. And also recognize that, you know, you'll grow as a musician. I've been doing this for 18 years. I've been flying rainbow lasagnaing for a long time. And now I have a lot of confidence in that. I predict that you will gain similar levels of confidence in just simply knowing how you need to rearrange things. And the knowing, like, look, when I paint a painting, I know, I'm like, this part's got to be purple, this part's got to be red. And it doesn't matter. If someone else comes along and says to me, no, you shouldn't make that part red or too much red or whatever, I'm like, jump out a window. Like, it's my painting. I know how much red I'm supposed to put in it. I want you guys to have that level of attitude too. Have a little attitude, like in your life. How about if I came along to you and I said, oh, no. You don't want to be busy like growing tomatoes in a garden. You want to do this over here instead that I say is more important. Be like, Aurora, jump out a window. I want to grow tomatoes. And that's what I'm doing with my DNA. Like, that is the way you have to be. That is like part of developing that, your own confidence in your own creative ability. And so thank you, Eleanor. Really, really good questions. Elena says, can you explain the relationship between quote unquote me, thing that moves up through the torus, avoiding the membranes of death, and my chakras? Really, really good question. Thank you. So the me, quote unquote, is the needle of awareness. The needle of awareness plays on the record of your life. I have a song all about that. Let's say this is the record of your life, like an old-fashioned analog record of Led Zeppelin, where you have circular spiral grooves that all move inward towards the middle, right? That's exactly what this time field is like. These are the songs of potential of your life. But is your needle of awareness is what you would say is you, your sense of self. So if there's a song over here, and here's my needle of awareness, we're going to play this song over here, and this is a horrible song, like Face Gets Eaten by an Alligator. Oh, I played the alligator eating face song. I hate that song. But what if I play a different song? I can pick up the needle of awareness, move it to a different song, play a different song in my life. So your chakras, that's the record. That's got all the potential songs on it. Your experience, you, in quotes, is this, the needle of awareness that actually plays. And that is how we can understand that there can be all sorts of crappy potentials in the time field, but you don't actually have to be experiencing them. There can be peripheral potentials where an alligator eats your face, or piranhas, flesh-eating bacteria eat your eyeballs, whatever's the worst thing that could possibly happen. But you don't have to actually be there experiencing that. You focus your needle of awareness on a different experience in life, because, you know, many, many bad things can happen. We don't have to be experiencing all the bad things possible. Thank you, Elena. Thank you for your comment. Okay, Miniman, good to see you here. Always have really good insights and questions. Miniman says, Pooties are like the Borg from Starship Enterprise, question mark, or the Negramanga from Riddick. I don't know Riddick, so I don't know that one, but I would say yes. Pooties have a correlation with the Borg from the Star Trek TV series. So the Borg, they fly around in cubes, like Saturn's cube. They once were biological, but then they get these cyborg-like implants. So I think Captain Picard gets like a microchip on his face. There's like sexy Borgs too. They've got, you know, big bosoms, but they're like biological containers that have then been infested with technology, and they have a communal mind. They say, join the Borg. The only reason why I know about this, because like I have to like research Earth pop culture. When I started telling people I'm from a collective, a consciousness collective, they would say, oh, you're from the Borg. I'm like, no, I looked at what the Borg is. I'm not the Borg. I don't have microchips on my face. No. And also, let me just jokingly, but for real, seriously, like no one in space wears a unitard. No one wears a unitard in space. They are so uncomfortable. And you have to unzip this whole thing, like just so that you can go to the bathroom, just go to the space bathroom. Like not that, no. And also like, you want something comfortable that flows, not something super clingy. And white is very difficult to clean. So everyone thinks like white space unitard jumpsuits. Like no one's gonna wear that. White makes your ass look huge. That's all I can say. But the Borg are very similar to the Pooties. And the Pooties, I don't always harp upon this, but they have an artificial intelligence or non-biological aspect to them that is part of this, that the occupiers of the interstices, they're stuck here on the membranes, like the peanut gallery, talking to you, or a vampire feeding off of you, but they don't have life force energy. They have technology, and they use technology in order to, harm and diminish and distort us biological beings that do have actual access to life force energy, but they don't use life force energy. So they rely upon technology and calculations. And so in our diminished state, we have had to rely upon technology as humans. But yeah, and also the communal mind thing. Like I joke on Facebook now also about the mind flayed. This is from Stranger Things, like pop culture stuff. But it's the idea that there can be a parasitic mind infestation that is a communal mind, kind of like Antichrist. If the awakening of this chakra on the body connects together all of the other beings that are awakened here and elsewhere, and that would be Christ consciousness, not Catholicism or Christian religion, but Christ consciousness. Then we have the antithesis, which would be malevolent consciousnesses that are joined together using a technological version of synthetic telepathy. That's like what the Borg is, not like what these pesky occupiers in the interstices are. Pedro says they are more like demons. And I think demons is another apt description, but I would also say that demons have a technological quotient to them that perhaps was overlooked or underdescribed in the ancient world. They didn't have a word for technology. So just like saying, chariots of fire, wheels within wheels, like they were using poetic descriptions for items that they didn't have words for. I think that we have now said, we have now acculturated demon to mean non-technological supernatural being, but I think that the ancient world was perceiving technological supernatural beings and didn't have the vocabulary to be able to describe them. Sharon, okay, let me read these private things she's saying here. Oh, okay, thank you very much, even though that was sent to me privately. So the question is, I'll just read it out loud. Sharon was having sex this morning, and when I was talking she was remembering to a class time when I had described saying that an orgasm should go upward, up the spine and out through the crown chakra. And she said that when she imagined the crown chakra, she saw a being sitting there. And do I think that this is a putti? Really, really good question. And thank you for this. Because this class, we're mature enough to be able to talk about these questions and things like that. I would say huge yellow caution flags on anything that has a face. Because if it has a face, it's presenting itself through the anthropomorphic filter, not merely as an abstraction. It didn't come to you as like a sparkling ball of amethyst crystal or something like that. And you got to be really skeptical of anything that's presenting itself as it's a supernatural residue. Like if it's not a pure abstraction, it's a residue, it's a thought form of some point. And I would say, why is it there? Who is it? Why? No, here's the basis. No one should be coming between you and your sex life and the divine. That's literally between you and the divine. That's your connection to the divine. And there should not be any intermediaries. So no bearded sky god, no space Jesus, no anybody should be up there saying like, yes, I smile down upon your marriage bed. I allow you to have an orgasm. That's nobody's job. That's literally nobody's job. So I would say huge yellow caution flags on any being that wants to interpose itself between you and, the divine, who I would say that the divine is your ultimate lover, right? So yeah, and I would also go so far as to say that up until this point on Earth's surface, there's been like an internet of evil where, how you have your internet and you have signals that go through servers or big giant mainframes, that there are people or embodied monsters on our planet that act kind of like sexual servers, taking all of these signals. It's part of the reason for sexual abuse. The jackhammer is going outside. It's so difficult to focus while I'm saying this too. But just understand that many of the natural aspects of sexuality and where that energy of orgasm flows have been hijacked and distorted, so that the energy as it is released often is subverted or made to flow into an artificial place where it wouldn't flow otherwise, such as one of these servers, mainframes of evil, and then sent out to other places where it wouldn't ordinarily go. So everybody needs to start to encrypt their sexuality. Encrypt your sexuality. Make sure that your direct connection to the divine is not being hacked by any little stupid thing, stupid effer that wants to come along and be like, oh, I see your beautiful orgasm. I'll just take that and use it for my own purposes. I'll just take that and use it to whatever. We're creating an evil, malevolent spell. But I'm sorry, but that is what happens when I talk about the subversion and hijacking of your potential, of your imagination. Sexuality is directly connected to reality manifestation via imagination. That's why I find it so very, very funny that males in this world are taught to envision baseball scores so that they don't prematurely ejaculate. Like you're imagining baseball scores. Just imagining like the world of pure imagination, all these baseball scores, just like books and books of baseball scores, because that's what is being imagined during the moment of sex. Again, I get lighthearted, but I hope that the seriousness comes through. Mini Man has a question and says, what is a demon exactly? So the word demon is acculturated. It is our understanding from the Bible of a supernatural residue, consciousness residue. But my definition of demon is a being that is occupying this membrane, this membrane right here. So how did they get there? They basically jumped out of divine union. They don't use a bridge of love. They use technology, and they use technology in order to, like Wile E. Coyote runs off the cliff, but he doesn't actually fall. He just runs. These evil beings keep on running and maintaining their status quo, not actually falling and experiencing, the end result of their actions by siphoning energy off of you and I. So that's how I would describe what a demon is. And Pedro says, evil beings not meant to be in this reality. I think that's another good, succinct description. Patricia says, soulless entity not connected to source. Awesome description. Cheryl says, I'm getting it. I'm so happy that you're getting it. Cheryl's been a long time class participant, and I appreciate you for being here. And also, we understand, like, sometimes, like you might do a few lessons, then come back another semester and do more. Like, life gets in the way sometimes, so thank you. It's good to see you. Pedro says, you can look at some of the archived classes from lesson 18. Yeah, and that's good too. So Miniman's asking a question that he's always, like, asking ahead a little bit of where he's at in his level, which is good. I'm not making fun of you at all. So, because they'd be like, wait, tell me about the Merkaba. I'm like, well, we'll do Merkaba next week. We'll do stargazing in lesson 13. We're talking about lesson 18 stuff. So Miniman is asking about stuff that is actually a little bit down the road for level 1, but quite familiar for level 2. So if you want to go ahead in the class, you can always check that out a little bit, and we'll be sure to talk about it in length. Sharon says, I explained the impossible so well. Thank you. I tried very hard. Pedro says, we should remove or replace the word impossible for improbable, meaning nothing is impossible, just not possible right now. I think that's a good, approach, especially since flying rainbow lasagna, many more things are possible than were possible before. Like, this pretty much makes anything possible. Since the invention of this, all bets are off. So I really agree with that. And Sandy says, water molecules change shape depending on whether affected by love or anger. Thank you for that. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for being, tuning in today. And your comment relates beautifully to level 2. We're just about to get into level 2, which is all about harmonics. So remember this comment, how, like, if you speak love, if you say to the water, I love you, I love you, I love you, and then we freeze it into ice cubes, it makes these perfect ice crystals. And if you play, like, horrible heavy metal music and say, like, hateful things to the water, then it freezes into these now formed crystals. This is harmonics. This is cymatics. We'll talk all about that in level 2. Yeah, improbable is much better. We agree. Miniman says, so this society, quote unquote, is set up to make my DNA shitty on purpose, so I can't evolve as a being. Ding, ding. Sorry, it ain't pretty, but that's the truth. And Patricia agrees. Yep, pretty much. That's why we are here to antidote. Yeah, it is very disheartening to learn just exactly how crappy and screwed up this world is. But I'm telling you, like, if I had a child, I would not be like Santa and the Easter Bunny, and then, when they're 12, like, it all comes crashing down. No, I would be honest from the beginning. So Mini-Man, I must be honest with you from the beginning. Yes, this world is a pile of crap, and, it sucks big cactuses sometimes. But this is a solution that I have, and that's why I really focus on the solutions in this class. Pedro says, we will evolve. They are doing everything in their power to delay it. Is intuition related to the crown chakra? I would say intuition is actually more related to the orange chakra. We often say intuition has to do with this up here, but I would say this is insight, like inner sight, something that you can actually see. But intuition is kind of more like in your guts down here. It's like when you have a non-specific feel. I just got to feel. Like, sometimes I will have a feeling about someone, like, stay away from that guy. But sometimes I will have a specific insight, like, that guy eats puppies for breakfast. and they're different flavors. Thank you for that question. It's a good question. And yes, our evolution or ascension is inevitable. It cannot be stopped. It can only be delayed, and it ain't being delayed any longer. Eleanor says, so it's vibrating our DNA to the shape and oscillation of the FRL that matters, not knowing which events of the tapestry we're weaving. Yes, yes, absolutely. So I approach this all as a pure abstraction. I sit in my chair each day and I do my wild flying rainbow lasagna dance. I don't necessarily say, okay, I got to make this event happen. I got to make this guy talk to this guy, and I got to make this newspaper event happen. Like, no, I don't do that at all. I am totally acting on an abstract level. Red thing touches green thing, and then this blue thing comes along, and then I put this together with this. I actually am curious to find out what's going to happen as a result of my various Rubik's Cube rearrangements when I'm at that level of abstraction. So when I'm at that level of abstraction, I don't necessarily know what will be the physical repercussions. And then I come back into reality and I'm like, okay, let's look at the news. Let's see what's new. Let's see the repercussions of the dance that I just experienced. And I do the dance also for my personal life, where I won't see those repercussions on the news, but I might experience them with a phone call or an email or some experience as I walk through the day. But you're asking wonderful questions. I appreciate your insights very much. I got a private question from Jeffrey. I don't have an answer for that, Jeffrey. So I'm a female in female anatomy, so I don't have any personal tips of the trade about male orgasm or how best to move your energy through the biological structures for a male. But so there's questions about, like some of these tantric practices. I don't know if tantric is the right word. Some of these practices from the Far East that are about not ejaculating, and whether that's desirable or whether that's not desirable. So my answer is I don't have an answer because I'm a female and I do not actually have that as personal experience. So I cannot speak to that. But thank you very much. And I don't know anybody trustworthy like to ask that question too. So thank you for your question. I'm sorry I can't be more helpful. And I'll always say I don't know if I don't know something. Patricia says that she feels her intuition in her solar plexus. That is interesting. Pedro wants to know, are these overtones like putting Merkabahs of different sizes? Yes, you are asking a level 2 question. Bookmark that for level 2. Get wants to know, good, I'll ask that in level 2. So wait, one more question for level 1. Ines, thank you for being here. Says, so the FRL dance can influence the global situation as well, not just your private environment. Ines, I love you. I'm hugging you. Yes, you asked a beautiful question. Yes, absolutely truthful. That's the whole purpose of it, that you are meant to, influence your own body. Definitely health and vitality for your own body. Definitely stability and safety and goodness for your own life, but also for the entire planet. You are not separate from the planet at all. Your body is totally analogous to the planet, the actual Earth that we're on. Everything that happens to you, like, oh, look, I'm drinking some water. Well, guess what? It's raining in Africa. Like, you are connected to the planet. Water is coming into you. Water is falling in Africa, like intimately connected. And there's no reason whatsoever why you should say, well, I'm only, the pinky's up. I'm only allowed to fix my front lawn, and I'm not allowed to actually do anything on a larger scale. Like, of course you're allowed to encourage to do things on a larger scale, but also recognizing that there's ethics and boundaries. Like when you're doing things on a larger scale, you're affecting the whole planet, you're affecting lots of organisms. But think about my backyard. Like, I'm allowed to do stuff in my backyard. I'm affecting all of the microbes, plants, birds, squirrels, and anything else that lives in my backyard. So I take those ethical considerations in if I'm going to plant something or water something or dig something up. Like, that's how I look at this. So you're allowed to do stuff in your personal body, in your personal life, and in the planet at large, understanding that you're having an impact and taking responsibility for that impact. But I would say it's why we're supposed to be here. And I think that also segues nicely into the level 2 stuff about harmonics, because it's all about how we're affecting each other non-locally through vibration. So I'm going to end this recording, get on to level 2. I also need to take a brief break so I can set up my equipment. Thank you so much, everyone.